Good afternoon, esteemed guests and dear colleagues. Today, we are celebrating 75 years of independence under Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat and Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the flagship program of Ministry of Education, Government of India. On behalf of Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat teams of Mizoram University, Aizawl and Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Motihari, Bihar, our partner university, it is a pleasure and honor on my part to welcome all our guests, speakers and participants. Today we have Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University, Professor K.R.A. Sambashiv Rao as the chief guest. Professor Rao is in another meeting of our Constituent College. He'll be joining shortly. We have our Honorable Prof. Vice Chancellor, Professor J.K. Patnaik as the guest speaker. We have another guest speaker, Dr. Narendra Kumar Arya from Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Motihari, Bihar. He is with us. We have the team members of Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat of both the universities. In particular, Professor Afiqul Islam, Nodal Officer of Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Motihari, Bihar, with me, colleagues, research scholars, students, and other guests, intellectuals who would be joining this meeting now with us. And today, when we celebrate this Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and 75 years of independence, we know that today is the day when we remember our freedom fighters, freedom struggle, sacrifices of our great leaders and the common people alike who have fought for independence of our country. And today's title of this webinar is India at 75, Marching Towards Excellence. Dear friends, we know the legacy of the freedom struggle continues from Bal Gangadhar Tilak to Lal Bal Pal, Khudiram Bose, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Chandrasekhar Azad, Mahatma Gandhi, Subhash Bose, and millions of leaders and common people who have sacrificed their life. They have done everything for the country to give us freedom. And Mahatma Gandhi, the tallest among all, father of our nation, he told, this is only a beginning. We got independence, which is partial, political independence. We need social, economic, intellectual, and many more types of freedom we need. And we have a long way to go. And all of us should rededicate our life for the cause of the country. And when we discuss these issues, 75 years of journey, we should think about our past, our present, and the future, what could be done to make the oldest civilization with the youngest population in the world one of the best in the present day scenario. With these few words, it is my honor to invite our first guest speaker, Honorable Prof. Vice Chancellor of Mizoram University, Professor J.K. Patnaik, to speak. Sir, please take your time, and this is your turn. Professor Patnaik, please.
Thank you, Professor Pathi. Good evening to all from Mizoram University as well as the Mahatma Gandhi Central University. Today is an important occasion for us, important day. And on this occasion, we have to take stock of what we did. As the chairperson has already said, what was the past in the past 75 years. What did we do? And how we can march ahead towards the path of excellence. This theme is very relevant for us, particularly our generation, which is the post-independent generation, the baby boomers. We were the baby boomers of the post-independent India, because at the time of independence, we have had a population of around 30 crores, little over 30 crores. And now we are 130 crores, above 130 crores. It's a huge population. Nevertheless, we have been able to march ahead in our project of national building. At the time of independence, we had the baggage from the colonial Raj, the baggage of poverty, disease, the baggage of unemployment, and also the baggage of numerous kinds of. VC sir has also joined. Yeah. Namaste, sir. VC sir, namaste.
Sir, we
Namaste,
welcome
sir.
all.
Actually,
Yeah, we welcome
because still I'm in
on behalf of.
PUC, so I joined in mobile.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
you are,
Still I'm in PUC, sir.
sir. You are supposed to speak first. Anyway, sir.
No, no, no need, sir. Sir, you continue. Sir will speak like. Sir, please continue.
Hello? I'm not able to hear. No, my voice is not coming.
Sir, we can listen to you. We can listen to you, sir. Your
Voice
voice is
is not
coming
coming.
clear. Sir, your voice is clear, sir. We can listen to you.
Okay. Okay. Yes. VC speaking. Okay. So when we ventured upon the project of national building, we were having this baggage of so many things, and we had to grapple with those issues. And for that reason, we had to have a different kind of strategy. The national leaders at the time of independence ventured upon a strategy of development so that these issues can be solved, certainly not overnight, but systematically over a period of time, and we can counter the problem of backwardness. The biggest issue was there was insufficiency of food. Food production was very low, and people were not in a position to have a square meal a day. Alongside poverty, there is unemployment and illiteracy. It was a huge task for us, for our leaders, how to go about it. The national leaders decided to adopt socialism as a technique for the purpose of solving these issues. Because at that point of time, socialism was the only ideology which was offering a kind of solution to the problems that various countries were facing at that point of time. But India was not truly socialist at that point of time also. India was never a socialist country. We adopted for our strategy of economic development mixed economy, partly command economy, partly private managed. The private enterprise was flourishing under the tutelage of the government, but at the same time, the command economy was also moving with greater heights. The first few plan periods, as you know, the predecessor of Niti Aayog, which Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji in 2014 dismantled, the planning commission was there, and we systematically ventured upon various plan periods to strategize ourselves for economic development. And this planning is not only just an economic strategy, but also at the same time, it was intended to solve the socio-economic problems, the cultural problems, because alongside the issue of economy, we had also a cultural issue. The cultural issue was mainly because of the partition days. The partition days horror, partisan days of difficulties. But planning has really worked, not fully, to some extent, in meeting the various problems, in meeting the issues, the problems, issues that we encountered at that point of time. And I have already told you that ideologically we were, although loaded in favor of socialism, it was also a capitalist mode of development that was taking place. And under this planning commission, we had giant industries, which I have already said, being controlled by the government. And those giant industries serve, to some extent, the needs and requirements of Indian society. But that was not sufficient. In the first few years of our planning, we have noticed that the government adopted import substitution industrialization, because for everything we had to import from at the time of independence, we had to import from the foreign countries, everything from alpine to aeroplane. And that was actually robbing off our economy. And to counter that, we developed import substitution industrialization. It was a project again under the United Nations, Raul Prebisch, the Latin American economist, who broached the idea of import substitution industrialization. And this import substitution industrialization was meeting some of the problems that arose due to import-oriented strategy that we began at the time of independence. The economic dimension was so complicated at that point of time that what kind of strategy would be the right strategy was a billion-dollar question to our policymakers. Interestingly, at that point of time, the intellectual resources in India were not sufficient enough to moot out an appropriate strategy of development. For that reason, we had to adopt some kind of strategy that would be on trial and error method. The great Mahatma's plan, you might have heard about the Mahatma's plan, who borrowed from the Soviet Union the planning model. That was put in place, but the rate of economic growth was very slow. They used to say, one economist, Krishna Raj, said, Hindu rate of growth. Just as Hinduism is a very slow, in its pursuit. So economic growth was also Hindu rate of growth, to the tune of 3.5%, 3 to 3.5%. And this was not trying to solve the baggage which I began with, the baggage of poverty. It was not solving the food insufficiency. It was not solving poverty and unemployment. So still the leadership was seized with this issue of coming out with a strategy. And again, I repeat that at the international level also, the economists did not have an appropriate solution as the key for economic growth. Lately, though, some economists suggested that trade is going to be an engine of growth, foreign trade. The more you produce, the more you export, the more foreign exchange you earn, and you become more prosperous. To put it in a blunt and simple and a crude way. So this kind of strategy was not acceptable to India. Reason was Indian leaders were apprehensive of being gobbled up by the foreign companies. Once the foreign companies or foreign traders do trade with us or set up their industries over here, there is the fear psychosis of this East India Company. Same kind of history might repeat. That was the fear of our leaders. So there was a selective opening of the economy for the purpose of technology transfer, capital investment. Capital, there was a scarce capital in India. So we needed capital. We wanted to borrow money. We wanted to have technology. But who would give us technology? Because we were a socialist country. The capitalists, the Western countries were reluctant to come to India unless we become capitalist, fully capitalist, particularly the United States or the Western European countries. So we had to bank on the East European countries. We had to bank on the then Soviet Union and their technology. Those technologies were not so competitive with our technology, the Western technology. Obviously, the Western technology was much more advanced, except in the field of defense, because we are not sure. But let me tell you, the Russians were the first people who sent the Sputnik. And then, of course, after that, the Americans went for these ICBMs. When they went for ICBMs, and you know the story of how the Russians clandestinely planted in Cuba the missiles. And there was a competition in the arena of defense. I'm trying to just put forth the external scenario as well as the domestic scenario before you, immediately after independence, a few decades after independence, and how we were trying to face and grapple with those complex scenarios. And eventually, at this point of time, after 75 years of independence, we are in a position to talk about marching towards excellence. That is the gigantic step, gigantic march that we undertook way back in 1947. There's no doubt about it. Despite the confusions, despite the predilections, and despite our apprehensions, we tried to chalk out and strategize ourselves a kind of policy orientation in our national outlook, so that without having any infringement, we can develop ourselves without having any dependence on anything. I'm not talking about interdependence, I'm talking about dependence. Because dependency, all of you political scientists are here, the theory of dependency. So I'm not talking about dependence, I'm talking about interdependence. And we did not have any dependence. Although left-oriented intellectuals obviously would try to bracket India in the dependency paradigm. But I, for one, who believes in liberal principles and liberalism, strongly believe that at the end of the day, the liberal framework that was a part of the initial policy impetus did contribute towards the stage that we have reached today. Whether it is bank nationalization or whether the two wars that we faced during that time with Pakistan, with China, all these things may seem to be, big hurdles, but those hurdles could be surmounted. Bank nationalization is not a hurdle, though. It seemed to be a kind of a solution, but that solution became a problem in the later years, which we have witnessed recently. But at that point of time, when Mrs. Gandhi talked about roti, kapda, makan, because those were the three things that we wanted. At the moment, the slogan is not that. The slogan is about Atmanirbhar Bharat. So there is a giant shift in the paradigm, in the policy paradigm that we witness today. This has been possible because of the systematic effort we undertook willy-nilly and with our all apprehensions, the various policy orientations, with mixed economy, with democratic socialism, because I am touching upon this socialist dimensions of our policy perspective at that point of time when we talk about bank nationalism. That was a big watermark in the history of India's economy. Internationally, at that point of time, that was a critical time, the 60s, late 60s and 70s. Nixon, August 15, 1973, they were facing, the Western world was also facing crisis. Nixon delinked dollar from the gold standard, international gold standard. And of course, our economy was very small economy. Even today, it is a very small economy. I do not deny compared to the American economy or the Chinese economy. In terms of PPP, purchasing power parity, we may stand third, fourth, something like that. But in terms of GDP, we rank far below. And the rate of growth may be, very attractive. Remember this, that the Chinese economy is 3 to 4 times bigger than our economy. If we have a 5% or 8% of growth, means their 2% of growth is sufficient to match with our 8% growth. And the American economy, if they have got 2% growth, means ours should be 10 to 12% growth. Then only you can match with the growth. Such is the size of our economy. And we are a proud country, a proud civilization. But look at our economy, the size of the economy. We have all the resources. We have all the wherewithals, all the materials for growth and development to match with those giant economies. But having said that, let me tell you again, I want to reiterate that with democracy marching ahead, this is the only country in the world, a developing country in the world, which is far ahead of other developing countries, including Brazil, including South Africa, and many smaller European countries, East European countries, which got merged with now the Western world. Now, the Bangladesh war, I'm touching the external dimension. The Bangladesh war proved that India is capable of becoming a leader in South Asian region. India can decide for itself and can also decide for others. That is the defense dimension. Because an independent country needs security. And India can secure for itself. That's the biggest message that India gave. Despite so much of opposition from the Americans, despite so much of opposition from the Europeans at that point of time about our engagement in Bangladesh. In the vivisection of Pakistan, India's contribution cannot be overemphasized. In the creation of Bangladesh, we cannot be ignored. So India is emerging step by step, systematically, and turning out to be a leader in South Asia. Not only in South Asia, it is now poised to emerge as one of the important leaders in Asia. I'm talking very modestly. I do not want to tell any high-sounding things about being an intellectual. We should be very much realistic about our judgment our assessment of our own self. We may say that we can match with the Europeans, we can match with the Americans. That will take time, because those societies have advanced so much. Compared to that, we are lagging far behind. Having said that, we are cut out for the march towards excellence. The signals are very clear. You see, largest democracy in the world. In few years' time, now we are going to overtake China in terms of population. And the largest democracy of India's size is able to grapple with its myriad problems, with its rational choice of policies. That is the biggest achievement over these years. We had emergency, but we at the same time we overcome. Democracy has seen the test of the time, and Indians have accepted democracy is the only methodology for accommodating each other's views. Democracy is the only methodology for accommodating all sections of the people. And when we ventured in 1991, the opening up of our economy through a process of liberalization, privatization, that was done selectively, but that was an induced process of liberalization, because at that point of time we were facing severe economic crisis. India has to mortgage its gold in the Bank of England. We had only the just as we see nowadays the crisis in Pakistan, the crisis in Sri Lanka, we had also I'm trying to tell to the younger generation the scenario at that point of in 1991, to foot for the bills, the import bills, oil bills particularly. Only for 1 week we had the foreign exchange. And you will not believe, we had to allow the Americans during the Gulf War. Actually, Americans blackmailed India at that point of time. We had to open our facilities for refueling of their fighter planes to fight in the Gulf War. India is an independent country. India tries to retain its independence, but under duress, it had to give in. But that apart, those were few cases where we had to bend our knees. But the 1991 is an important milestone in the history of India's economic independence, because the chairperson has already said that we got political independence. Mahatma Gandhi said we need economic independence, and economic independence will be possible when we have got prosperity. You have got enormous wealth, national wealth, which can be equitably distributed, because equitable economic distribution is the fundamental of democracy. If you read Shreshtha talks about economic democracy, capitalism. Of course, he's a liberal, a capitalist. He was not capitalist, but a proponent of capitalism. And he did talk about equitable distribution of economic resources can be possible when you have a capitalist path of development. And 91 was the decisive year for us, when we chose for ourselves and gave up socialism. Remember, we gave up socialism, lock, stock and barrel. There is nothing called socialism today. I remember at the time I wrote an article in Indian Express, The March of Capitalism. a simple article, but it got published. I was not conscious about the thing that I mentioned at the time, because the march of capitalism was so fast. The juggernaut of capitalism, that is known as juggernaut of capitalism, it could not be prevented. The onslaught could not be prevented. I'm not talking about the benign side or malignant side of capitalism. I'm talking about capitalism per se and how it has become a solution to counter the difficulties and the hindrances and the handicaps of socialism. Because you have seen how the socialist world crumbled like a house of cards. Soviet Union got dismembered into 15 republics. At that point of that critical juncture, we were very decisive enough to accept the reality and move towards capitalism without having any hesitation. And that decade saw a massive development. But having said that, let me also tell you, before that, precisely in the year 1986, India was one of the few countries which opened up for the telecom sector. So the opening of different economic sectors selectively began way back in the 80s. But 91 was the last straw on the camel's back. And we had to become fully capitalist. After that, we know how things moved. The decade of 90s was the decade of IT revolution. Indian IT professionals were rushing to the United States for Y2K. You know, there was a Y2K issue in America. And all IT professionals moved to the United States and Europe. And IT revolution has really overtaken and pushed India to the limelight, to the center stage of this fourth industrial revolution. India has been at the center stage of the fourth industrial revolution. There is no doubt about it. You should accept the fact. It is not only blockchain technology, it's not only artificial intelligence or drone technology. We are definitely at par with the many Western countries in terms of our technological strength and innovation. We have got also another important area where we have got a decisive edge over others, that is the pharmaceutical industry. In the 80s and 90s, we saw a revolution of sorts in the pharmaceutical industry. Now we are the giant leaders in pharmaceutical industry. And that has been proved in the COVID-19 pandemic. In the COVID-19 pandemic, you've seen how India emerged as the leader of not only vaccination, leader of the pharmaceutical industry also. And we supplied pharmaceutical things to all developing countries and also some developed countries. Now, when we look at these things, are we in the right direction? Are we in the pursuit of excellence? Definitely, India is in search of excellence. With our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji coming to power in 2014, who made a slogan of New India. It is a new India. It is a young India, which has targeted itself to become a Vishwaguru. We have got the NEP 2020. If it is implemented fully by 2040, by 2047, we are going to emerge as one of the most developed countries in the world. Today, on the ramparts of the Red Fort, Modi ji has said that 2047 we should emerge. That is 100 years after independence, at least emerge as a developed country. Because those young kids who are 25 years old today will be 50 years old, and they should dream of India becoming a developed country, not a developing country. And for that, we have got many strategies. We are Atmanirbhar Bharat. This so-called slogan may seem a little bit political, but it is real and it is really economical. Unless we are self-sufficient in our own technology, in our own industry, we are not able to reach that stage. We will not be in a position to reach to that stage. And we have to be conscious, we have to be deliberate enough in choosing ourselves on that path whereby we can achieve excellence. I will not speak much. I have really spoken in a very wayward fashion because of the, some kind of, I don't know what was my mood. But seriously speaking, I spoke from my heart. It is not an academic presentation. Here and there, I might have spoken a little bit. It's certainly not an academic presentation, but I've tried to talk about my emotional kind of, understanding about India's efforts towards not only economic progress and march towards excellence, but also India's desire to become one of the world leaders. With this, I thank Professor Pathi, I thank Vice Chancellor Sir, I thank our partners in Mahatma Gandhi Central University, and all those listening to me patiently and could bear my, whatever, murmurings. So I thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. We thank Professor Patnaik for his brilliant speech. And now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Narendra Kumar Arya from Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Motiari, Bihar. Dr. Arya, please. It's your turn.
Thank you, Professor Pathi. Today we have gathered in this webinar to celebrate 75 years of India's independence. They jointly organized by the Mizoram University and Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Bihar, under the banner of Ek Bharat, Shreshtha Bharat. Chief guest of today's webinar, Professor KRS Sambashiv, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Mizoram University, Professor J.K. Patnaik, Honorable Prof. Chancellor, Mizoram University, and my co-speaker, Chairman of the webinar, Professor Srinibas Pathi. I am really grateful to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Rao, for providing me this great opportunity to share my thought on India marching toward excellence. I also convey my gratitude to Professor Patnaik, Vice Chancellor, and Professor Pathi for inviting me to be part of this wonderful event. Distinguished chief guest and my cherished learned friends, I wish you all a very happy Independence Day. My best wishes to all the Indians present in this webinar. Today is a very special day for all of us because today we are celebrating 76th Independence Day of our nation. Although we have been celebrating independence every year with great joy and enthusiasm, but this day is even more joyful as we have achieved a great milestone. We have successfully completed 75 years of uninterrupted freedom and democratic governance as per the liberated conscience of this great nation. Today, I've got a chance to speak on India's marching toward excellence, and I feel honored as this is the topic about which every Indian is nowadays thinking and reveling. To start with, I could say India has made tremendous progress since 1947 and is taking even greater strides to become a great power with care and responsibility of entire humanity as enshrined in our cultural glory and constitutional freedom, constitutional spirit. I am a political scientist, and as Professor Patnaik referred in his speeches, several moments, and I would also assert that frequently I will consider about the political ideals and political values that we as a nation have adopted, nurtured, and are destined to erect to such high levels that the world will be inspired by Indian nationals and their political character. 75 years back, India decided to adopt democratic way of life. Today, we can boast and take pride in the fact that we are the only nation, Asian nation, which has continuously remained a democratic political system. Despite several challenges that we have faced in course of this long, splendid journey, we have struggled together and overcome victorious all the obstacles. No matter what kind of obstacle they were, political, economic, financial, agricultural, or technological. We are only nation that provided universal franchise to its every adult individual, irrespective of all the existing differences, and people in return have shown faith, dispatched in their unyielding egalitarian spirit. They have resisted and defied the forces that seemed dangerous to democracy. The people of India have respected and internalized the secular and socialist values enshrined in our wonderful constitution. People of all religious fervor and sects have enjoyed the freedom of their belief as guaranteed in the Indian constitution. Despite trivial intermittent events of conflicts, it cannot be said that these ever grew serious enough to challenge the secular wisdom. In the same spirit, we can say the socialist principle of governance has taken care of a country of billion plus people. The subsequent governments have made efforts to curtail fears of poverty, deprivation, hunger, and other forms of socio-economic incapacities. We have lifted 271 million people out of multi-dimensional poverty in a decade, according to the UNDP. This figure is larger than the population of most of the nations of the world. Despite this commendable effort, unfortunately, we still house the largest army of poor in India. People's faith in democracy is in sync with its political leader. In last 70 years, every government that has come to power has found its way to power only through the legit and constitutional mode. That is, the electoral process as directed by our constitution. Despite sinister efforts of internal or external forces to destabilize or disintegrate the fabric of Indian federalism, they have been doomed by its citizens' firm conviction for cause of national integrity. My learned friends, we are not just scaling new heights in political domain, but marching ahead with pride in several fields. We started our journey as a predominantly agricultural society and economy. On our way from a mixed economy, we have reached to a point of having evolved into a highly industrial and service sector oriented economy. In 1960s, Green Revolution, and in 1970s, White Revolution modernized our agricultural sector with help of scientific and technological tools and methods. Today, we are not just a self-sufficient country in food production, but we also export very large quantities of food product to many nations of the globe. In fact, we are today in a position, a nation that can use food exports to assist its foreign policy objectives, especially in countries like Middle East and elsewhere. We can take pride in the fact that we are the largest producer of many fruits, milk, pulses, and oilseeds, and second largest producer of wheat, rice, and sugarcane in the world. We are subsisting a population which is more than 1,100,000,000 people. So this step, this achievement from a country which were basically agricultural to becoming a country which has attained new height in the field of agricultural development is not a small achievement. It is not a small act. It is a great act that India has taken care of its billion, 100 billion billion plus people. Historically, India has remained the largest economy of the world, shown by the economist Agnes Madison in his OECD report. According to this OECD report, from 1st century AD to 19th century AD, India was a leader, a global leader in economic GDP, except for a brief period overtaken by China. Today, we are world's third largest economy in terms of PPP GDP, that is $8 trillion, as already told by our learned professor, Professor Patnaik. And we are the fifth largest in terms of the nominal GDP, which is $3 trillion. However, the other fact is also important. We are placed at number 134th position in terms of per capita income. It means people are still poor and a lot is yet to be done to lift people out from poor quality of life. We are considered as an engine of global economic growth, but we just don't need to grow. Growth is not everything. Rather, we need to translate this growth into development. We must have an objective that this growth is translated into meaningful development. The benefits of the economic growth should reach all ranks of Indian citizenry and territorial units. The benefits of the economic growth should not be concentrated in certain pockets. They should not be concentrated in certain sectors, in certain territories. Rather, the whole of India and every Indian should be a participant in this process of economic growth. They should have, they should feel, they should experience, they should be benefited by the economic growth that is taking place in India. So we can say that India is one among the few nations who have brought paradigm shift in global economy and polity. We are no longer a recipient of loans offered by global financial institutions. In the history, uh, there were conditions when India was not in a position that it could afford to be self-dependent in economic terms. It has to seek help from the global institutions like World Bank, IMF, or ADB. But things have changed drastically in last 2 decades. And instead of taking loans from these World Bank, IMF, or ADB like global institutions, India is in a position to provide funds to such institutions. And these funds are made use to help today's needy nations of the globe. So there is a paradigm shift. In fact, because from a country which used to seek funds, now it is a country which provides funds to the needy nations of the globe. We are one of the richest nations in terms of the forex today, and this is also a great achievement. The economic well-being, we can say, is visible in several domains of life. We are living symptoms of economic backwards behind. In last 75 years, we have made education our fundamental right. We have not attained 100% literacy, but many more people can read and write than when we attained freedom. This is and this is a spectacular moment. Likewise, the life expectancy, which is a sign of multilateral development, also shows that India is increasing in the field of life expectancy. The life expectancy in India is increasing continuously, and we have reached near the global norm of 72 years. And it is not a mean achievement. So we can say that a rapidly developing and digitalizing society is always on move. Like our own country, it needs a vast network of transportation to move people and commodities to their places of destination. And India has been doing great in this field. Today, the world's largest rail network is in India, and that transports almost entire population of the earth. That is 8 billion people every year. Indian Railway is world's eighth largest employer, and likewise, We also have a great network of metro rails. Metro rails are another mode of transport. In a society, in an economy where people are moving, they are going to places of work and they have to do business, they need rapid transit systems, and metro rails provide this kind of facilities. India already operates the fifth largest metro network in the world in its 15 cities, and India has plans to spread this metro network to 71 countries. If we compare this figure to US's 12 and China's 48 cities, it really seems that India is making excellence possible. These developmental achievements would not have been possible without age in field of science and technology. We were the first nation, we were the first Asian nation that built a nuclear reactor and second to launch a man-made satellite in space. Recently, India has created an atomic clock, which is a necessary technology for advanced scientific and technological uses like satellite navigation and digitalizing life. Only a handful of countries have this technology. Before this spectacular achievement, India has built its own GPS system. And before that, India has in recent times also made very great strides in the field of defense. India is among a few countries who have created their own aircraft carrier ship and also the submarines. So India made its people proud when we also sent a Mars orbiter and became first Asian nation to do so. With Chandrayaan 1 and 2, we have demonstrated our ambitions and dreams to the whole world. So India, if we see, it is doing uh, uh, spectacularly wonderful in the field of science and technology. Despite achievements in several fields of life, like economics, political life, and science and technology and agriculture, we can see that still there are a lot of challenges which India still need to overcome. Slowly but steadily, we are likely to become a sports powerhouse. This is another field in which India in recent times is making great strides. We are doing well at many platforms. In recently concluded Commonwealth Games, we achieved a very respectable place. So our aspirations are soaring, and in next years, in next decades, we are likely to become a powerhouse as in the field of science and technology and economics, also in the field of games. Thus, India has made all-round spectacular progress in every department. We have done exceptionally well in political, scientific, technological, and economic field. Yet, several challenges still haunt the conscience of the nation. India's rank is declining in last few years, and we are at 46th spot on the Global Democracy Index in the flawed democracy category, scoring lowest on the political cultural front. This is a sign of grave concern. India need to mend her democratic ways because we were seen by the world as a symbol of democracy when there were great times as far as the democracy is concerned for India. Though there came some periods when democracy in India was haphazard. For example, we can take the case of emergency. But still, democracy was flourishing, is flourishing in India. But there have been some instances when it seemed that democracy sometimes does not find the level as it was enshrined in Indian Constitution. So the fatal blows to democracy are also maligning our image abroad, and that is a point of serious concern. Another challenge is translating high growth to the development of vast masses and wipe the stigmas of poverty, hunger, and misery. This also reflects in the indices that measure human development and happiness. We are aware that there are certain indices like democracy, which also measure human development and happiness. And we are among the least happy people on this earth. We are placed at 134th. Happiness is a constituent of many things. The individual, when he faces many things in the different domains of his lives, then his understanding, his experience of the happiness emerges. If everything seems good in different fields of life, then the level of the happiness increases. So happiness is an indicator of several things, and India, as its placement at the happiness index shows, India needs to do a lot in the field of happiness. We need to assimilate the democratic ideals of equality, liberty, and fraternity. We are aware of these values, where from these values came, and why they are so essential for the democratic setup. So we need to assimilate these democratic ideals to achieve multidimensional welfare and development of our nation and our people. With these words, I conclude my speech. Thank you. Once again, I thank you, Mizoram University and MGCU for inviting me on this glorious occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Narendra Kumar Arya. That was very good description of India in 75 years. We are extremely happy and thankful to you for your deliberations. And now let us try, because as we told, our Honorable VC, Professor Rao, was in another meeting of Constituent College, and Sir is actually traveling now. So he's in the vehicle. Sir, if you are able to listen to us, can you just give a blessing for a few minutes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Good
thank
evening,
you.
sir. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening,
First
sir.
of all, wish you happy Independence Day to all of you. It was a honorable the chairman, Professor Pathi, and the speakers, Professor Patnaik and Sir. I forgot his name. Sorry.
Professor
Sorry, sir.
Professor Arya.
I could not
Professor
remember
Arya
your name.
from,
Don't feel
yeah,
bad about that. And what's your
yeah.
name, sir? I forgot.
Professor Dr. Narendra Kumar Arya from Motihari, Bihar.
Namaskar,
Narendra
sir.
Kumar.
Ah,
Dr.
okay,
Narendra
okay,
Kumar.
sir. Sorry, sir.
Hmm.
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
It's a very nice lecture I had just now, and I have been listening to him. And earlier, have been listening to Professor Patnaik also. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and to deliver a speech here on this occasion. And as he has covered so many aspects about how India has been progressing the past 75 years, and, uh, and how it is marching towards excellence in all aspects, particularly in science and technology and self-sustenance and sustainability, in progressing very efficiently, economic development of the country. India has covered all the aspects about that. And it was really a wonderful, comprehensive lecture, sir. And I've been just to things like India is a very highly populated country, even bypassing China in the population. But still, during COVID time, it has able to sustain very nicely and efficiently without any much mortality, and it has been progressing very well. Sorry, I'm I'm traveling, so it is very dark. So I'm just switching off my mobile video. So it was really wonderful, and that India has been progressing very well, and the implements for protecting itself from the various calamities and also the various difficulties in the past 2 years. It has overcome all the things very successfully, and being a very highly populated country, it has been providing education to all free, particularly in the primary level and secondary level, At many institutions, the free education is being provided by the government of India through scholarships and also free education to the students, children, and also in higher education also has been at a very affordable level, and it's not that, and many scholarships are provided, and best quality education is being provided after national education policy has been implemented, and it is many reformities in education system has been proposed, and many institutions now taking implementation of NEP very successfully, including Mizoram University. And India is going to become a Viswaguru in education after this implementation of NEP. And similarly, in science and technology development, India has been really been ranked in many aspects like publications and innovations and even the startup technology. Everyone, every area, India has been placed in the top 10 ranking in the world. Particularly in patents, also in the last 2 years, India has been improved so much, and patents has been highest number of patents are being filed after is playing a very important role in patent technology, and it has been progressing very well, and no, and with Honorable Prime Minister Modi's leadership, it has been progressing very nicely, and it will be definitely further one of the best country in the world in the form of democracy, true democracy, and it's not democracy, true democracy, I can say, and India has been implementing true democracy in our country, and it was very soon will become one of the superpower in the world. I say that in the last 75 years after the independence of India has been progressed very well, and it has been all-round development for the country. So with this, I just thank all the members who attended this meeting, and also I thank Professor Pathi for giving me an opportunity to interact with all of you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. This is a rare honor when a dedicated person like you, when you are still traveling and from inside the vehicle while on transit, you are still able to talk to us. We are very happy about it, sir. So now it's my turn to say a big thank you to all the participants and guests. So to start with, let me tell that our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor K.R. Sambashiv Rao, today chief guest, in spite of his busy schedule, the entire day was able to speak to us, and he talked about India's progress, particularly in terms of science and technology, and how changes in educational sector can do wonders in this country. And Professor J.K. Patnaik, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University, as the first speaker, talked about India in international perspective and from political economy point of view, how India has achieved milestones within 75 years. And our second guest speaker, Dr. Narendra Kumar Arya, comprehensively talked about India's developments, including the gaps and challenges which we face, and we have to take note of these issues and challenges in coming days. And dear friends, from my side, I can just add that excellence is not a destination. It is part of a journey, the unending journey called excellence. We should try hard and harder so that in the context of sustainable development goals, the parameters, India can achieve those goals, from political freedom to the freedom in economy, in society, in all the fields where India needs excellence, and with the all-round efforts of all the stakeholders, definitely one day India of future will be one of the best countries, which all our esteemed speakers and chief guests talk today. So on behalf of the Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat team of Mizoram University, Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Motiari, Bihar, our partner university, Professor Islam, my friend and nodal officer from MGCU, all the team members of both the universities, faculty members, guests, students, research scholars, intellectuals. I say big thank you and my gratefulness to all of you to make the webinar a success. Today is time to rededicate ourselves for the cause of India. Thank you very much. Namaste. Jai Hind.